called Pac-Man? Any of you?
Yes.
Okay. So, you might be really surprised to learn the similarity that this game has with the construction industry. So let me give you a quick overview of how this game works. You play the game as Pac-Man, the yellow creature that you see here. The game has a complex maze with points scattered all over it. Your objective is to find your way through the maze, collect enough points, and win the game. Now imagine this maze as the construction industry, and you as a player in this industry must find your way through the maze, collect points as you go, and ultimately win the game of construction. That sounds a bit easy, but games aren't designed to be one that easy, are they? So the current state of things in the construction industry makes it extremely difficult to win in a construction project, reap profits out of it, and to grow your business. It would be a good start to look at how the construction projects in India are performing right now to realize how difficult this construction game could really be. So this is the data published by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, MOSPI, India, on the status of the government construction projects in India. The ministry covers or monitors a total of 1,700 odd projects across India that have a total cost of greater than rupees 150 crore, and they published a breakdown of the number of projects with time delay and cost overrun. So can anyone just guess the number out of 1,700 projects that you think will have either a cost overrun or a schedule delay? Let's see who gets the nearest number out of 1,700.
1650.
I'll go for 1,500.
At least 1,200.
Okay, any other numbers?
1,200 at least.
100 plus.
Okay. So 583 out of these 1,700 projects have schedule delays, only schedule delays. And around 401 out of the 1,700 have exceeded their original cost. Actually, this number could be much higher, maybe closer to the number that you have said, because some projects are actually unreported here. And that gives us a 34% of the projects are running late, and around 20% of the projects have spent more than what was anticipated. In fact, the overall cost of the project has overshot the original planned cost of rupees 20 lakh crore by around 25%, and it now stands at hoping rupees 25 lakh crores. And this trend of cost and schedule overruns are not limited to one sector in the industry. The 1,701 projects include projects over a wide range of sectors like petroleum, urban development, roads, railways, aviation, water, health, and a lot more. This gives us a striking realization that there is an underlying problem in the way the industry works, and there are challenges that we must face to make it big in construction. It is like a game where we must face and destroy our enemy to eventually win the game. And who doesn't love challenges, and what's a game without a challenge? And that introduces us to the antagonist or the enemies in the game Pac-Man. So these are the four antagonists, or they call ghost in Pac-Man. They're called Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde. This is the actual name that they have in the game. Blinky and Clyde chase Pac-Man to eat Pac-Man, while Pinky and Inky, they try to corner Pac-Man to stop Pac-Man's progress in the maze. If you think closely, we have a similar situation in construction. A survey was conducted to understand the major reasons for time and cost overruns in projects, and it led to these four major problems that the customers face in construction. They are rework, change, the bid process, and site management. As rework and site management try to chase you down, change and bid process corners you or blocks your progress in the construction maze, leading to considerable impact on cost and schedule. So now let me take a minute and take you back to the game. So what do you think happens when you come face to face with one of these four ghosts? Every time you encounter a ghost, it eats you. It eats Pac-Man, and you lose a life. When you lose all three, you will no longer be able to compete. Now imagine that these lives are your profit in the business. Typically that would be around 10 to 15% of the total project cost. I would be definitely happy if a customer's profit is more, but this is kind of the average number. So every time you encounter one of these 4 challenges, what it is going to do is it is going to eat your profit until you lose everything and can no longer compete and run a sustainable business. Data signifies that these scores can be actually pretty powerful. Of the 401 projects that reported a cost overrun, around 42 projects reported a cost overrun of more than 50% of the original cost. And our profit is just 10%. That is adding 50 rupees to every 100 rupees of the planned cost, while the profit itself is just 10 rupees. And we kind of play games to win them, right? Not to lose them. So how do we win this? Well, we are lucky because there is a surprise savior that changes the entire game plan, helping you win the game, both in Pac-Man and in construction. And no, it is not Shaktiman. Images shown here are just for the purpose of illustration and does not reflect the actual savior. I will reveal who the savior is, but before that, it is important that we understand more about the 4 ghosts first, their nature, their impact on your business, why they exist, and how the surprise savior can equip you and your teams to win over these challenges. We'll talk about rework first. Studies report that in an average, businesses spend around 5% of the project contract value for rework. And reports suggest that this could go up to a shocking 30% of the contract value. Imagine executing a 100 crore project and spending as high as 30 crores on just doing duplicate work. And what about the time spent in rework? About 7% of the total work hours is actually spent in rework. To get things into perspective, let's take a simple example. A designer works 40 hours per week, and 7% of that is close to 3 hours wasted in rework per week. Say if the designer gets paid 400 rupees per hour, it is 400 times 3, that is 1200 rupees per designer per week just for rework. We can imagine the impact on the business if we scale that up to multiple people working over multiple projects for the entire duration of the project. And what do you think is one major contributor to rework in a construction project? Any answers for that? What do you think is the one major reason for rework in a project?
Change your notes.
Coordination issue between the designer and the executioner.
Yeah, it is the lack of coordination. You see, construction is an industry of divisions. At any instant,
Hey Prabhu, I don't know if you're still speaking. We've lost you for the last few seconds. Prabhu?
Can't hear him.
I think his network has blipped. Let me just call him up over the phone.
sorry, did I just get cut off?
Yep.
Okay, let me share my screen again.
Hey Prabhu. Prabhu, we lost you for the last 30-40 seconds.
Okay, just give me a moment. Were you guys with me when this slide was there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
This one. Yeah, you showed the 7%, and yeah, here's where you lost us.
Okay. Okay. You see, construction, we spoke about the lack of coordination, and construction is an industry of divisions. At any instant, there are multiple parties involved in a construction projects, and we see divisions everywhere in the project. People are divided in terms of the actual people working on a project, divided in terms of the different phases in a construction project, divided in terms of teams as well. And all of these different people across different phases, across different organizations, have to act in complete coordination to avoid rework in a project. And talking about that coordination, let's think about the hand-to-eye coordination that we need to have while playing a game like Pac-Man. Our eyes see the visual on the screen, and our hand reacts on a joystick. How are they connected, and how does that happen? How does the hands know what our eyes are seeing? What's the connection between our hands and the eyes? What connects them? Anyone?
Brain.
The brain.
Yeah, the brain, obviously. The brain acts as the single repository of data. Eyes transmit what they see to the brain, and the hands tap into the data, and we have a reaction from a hand that is more streamlined and continuous. Imagine there is no brain, and the eyes and the hands each store their data within themselves. There'll be chaos, right? And that is exactly what's happening in the construction industry. These different divisions in the industry generate data and store them in silos or separate containers, and therefore we have the lack of coordination. But how do we solve this? What if we think of your company as a person and the different parts as the entities that need to work together to win the business? Now replace the brain with a common data environment on the cloud. Now, just like the human body, you can have a single source for all your data, improve coordination, and reduce rework. And once this common data environment is established, there's actually no limit to the number of workflows that we can build on top of this data to help you in all the phases of construction, right from design to plan to build and even to maintenance. We can now move to Pinky or change. Construction projects work on progressive elaboration, in which the plan for a project is being constantly modified or improved as more and more improved information becomes available. It is less of a worry if it happens in the conceptual stages, but as it progresses further to the downstream cycles, like into construction or operation, it usually requires a change, and it affects the triple constraints of a project, like the scope, cost, and schedule. And it is one of the reasons that lead to cost and schedule overruns in a project. As much as we would love to finish projects without changes, it is important that sometimes we embrace the change and manage the change in order to reduce its impact on the business. Design changes as such can be managed with the common data environment so that teams become aware, visualize the changes, and make improved decisions on those changes. And change ultimately leads to increased cost, and hence it is important to establish a good financial control on the project, like a joystick that controls our game, to handle the changes and its impact down the line. Now let's get an idea of how a typical tender process happens in India as we progress into the third ghost, the bid process. The client starts with determining a tender process, like an open tender or a selective tender, and then invites the tenders. At this stage, unlike an open tender, for a selective tender, the client invites only select bidders who are shortlisted through a pre-qualification process to assess their financial stability and other necessary competencies. Then a bidder responds, one of them is selected, and the contract is established. Now, what is the problem with this entire process? It can be understood by looking at the two main stakeholders, their challenges, and how they impact the cost and schedule. The client who floats the tender and the contractor who bids. For the client, one of the concerns is the pre-qualification process to shortlist vendors, the time it takes, and its associated cost. And after all this, there is no way for him to be sure that the contractor truly meets the standards. And the client usually follows time-consuming manual methods to prepare quantity takeoffs that a contractor needs as part of the tender document. And due to this manual process, a lot of discrepancies occur between the drawings, the model, and the quantities. Now, if we add late design changes into this situation, it becomes worse, as the client needs to update their quantities manually to reflect the change and make sure it is available to the bidders on time. And for the bidders, a major concern is that the client usually provides tender documents with incomplete or important information missing. As a result, the bidders usually increase the bid price initially to account for the missing information so that they are not at risk later down in the project. They also get frustrated as most often the client favors lowest price over best value and innovation, as because the clients don't have any means to bring in different factors of bidders to prepare a bidder scorecard. The risk is on the client here, as the bidder would put up just a low price just to win the contract and boost up the final prices later down in the project. And bidders also spend a lot of time and money in making assumptions and guesswork because of the incomplete tender documents and the late changes that are coming in from the client. In fact, they spend around 22% of their operational turnover for bidding up to 5 projects and win just one. That is like spending 22 rupees of every 100 rupees earned to bid on 5 projects and win just one. This entire bidding process is long, difficult, and even risky for our customers. It is risky because delays in this tender process would eat up the lead time that we have into construction and further into delivery of the project. How do we fix this? The two parties are on two ends of a seesaw, and it must be balanced to help both of them win, for them to win in construction. We know how banks in India assess an individual to decide on clearing a loan for them, right? The CIBIL score that we have here. Imagine creating a social network for all the clients and the contractors with rich data about their financial stability, their completed projects, and generate a risk-based scorecard. Think about floating a tender in just 10 minutes to the right bidders instead of days, and reduce that 22% expenditure for bidding, making it as simple as an online application that would take minutes. Also, the common data environment that we created earlier could come in handy here for the client and the bidder, because it will help them get the latest set of 3D models and documents. And if we add an automatic quantity takeoff workflow on top of this common data, every time there is an update in the model, the quantities update automatically, leading to accurate estimations every time. Now that could change your business. And we'll move to the fourth ghost, that is site management. RFI, quality, safety, and reporting are the key words that usually resonate with site management. I'm a structural engineer, and every time I receive an RFI from the site, it gives me the chills. You get a ton of them, on an average close to around 700 per project, depending on the size of the project. They must be responded to as soon as possible, as it could lead to delays in the construction site. Typically, simple RFIs can be resolved in less than 8 hours, but the complicated ones take up to 9 days to respond. And if they are not properly managed, that is 9 wasted days at the site. When I worked as a structural engineer, I used Excel sheets to track all the RFIs, and it was tough to keep track of them, update the status, and a lot more. And safety and quality are of utmost importance in any construction site. Safety incidents in a site could cost up to 6% of the project cost, while the cost required for establishing safety programs on site would be around 2.5% of the project cost. The probable solution here would be to use digital and mobile technology to connect the field to the office. RFIs can be managed in real time, and with a tablet, everyone on the site can become safety and quality ambassadors, reporting potential risk even before they occur in the site. It would also kind of help the project owners to get a real-time update of what is happening on the site, what's the status of work on site. So now we have seen the problems in the industry and the possible solutions, but what will let you do all this? What will give you all the solution? Remember the savior that I spoke to you about? The savior is just one slide away. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's the energizers. They are the saviors of Pac-Man. There are 4 big dots that you see in each corner of the maze. Look closely to see what happens if the Pac-Man comes in contact with one of these energizers. They become powerful and can now chase and eat the ghost itself. The 4 ghosts actually run away from Pac-Man now. With that in mind, what do we have for the construction industry? What do we have for you? That is the Autodesk Construction Solutions that offers 4 energizers: BIM360, Plangrid, Assemble, and Building Connected. They empower your business with all the solutions that we discussed earlier. They help you chase down the 4 ghosts, rework, change, bid process, and site management, save your profit, and win in construction. On top of that, with the time and cost saved, you can focus more on productivity, innovate, and reinvent yourself and the industry. And it doesn't stop here. We are talking about games, and of course, every game has a bonus point. So, can someone tell me, like, how well do you play a game when you play it for the first time?
Novice level.
Yeah, and how about
Lose
maybe
all the lives.
yeah, how about the 10th time that you play the same game?
Expert level.
And if you played it for 100 times and you're playing it for the 100th time now,
And do it while sleeping.
yeah, so you become an expert at navigating through the game and winning the game, because every time you play, your brain stores data, analyzes the data, muscle memory kicks in, and it helps you develop a strategy or a game plan to address the risk that you might face when you're playing the game. Remember, your company has a human example, and how we spoke about having a common data environment on the cloud that could replicate a human brain. Well, for every project executed, a large amount of data is generated, and machine learning can help you process this huge data, analyze the data, and benefit you, our customers, with best practices, potential risk, and major issues, etc. Autodesk Construction Solutions will help you go beyond profit 3 to grow your business to new frontiers, innovate, and be the change you want to see in the industry. I would love to close with this. Autodesk is not just a CAD company. Autodesk loves construction, and it brings every person on every team closer together to help you win in the amazing maze of construction. Thanks, everyone.